following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Hi, and welcome to the September meeting of the Operations Committee. We have 9 items on our agenda under consent. Would either of you like an item pulled?
Yes, I'd like item number 9, the bid award for next-gen computerized maintenance management system software pulled.
Okay. We will put that at the end of our discussion agenda as item number 4 then for discussion. Would you guys like to recommend that we move all of the items on consent now to the council for recommendation?
I agree.
I concur.
Okay, all right. We're moving the items 1 through 8 to the full council on September 12th for approval. The first item for discussion is the streetlight policy revisions. Mr. Bailey.
Good afternoon, Town Council. This item is something that was approved in the budget to convert streetlights, a majority of the streetlights in Cary, to LED. When we originally contemplated the budget request, the rates were much different than they are today. And so we were contemplating originally buying fixtures, providing them progress, and then getting a lower rate through the rates they had at the time. Since then, they have lowered their progress, Duke Energy progress rates quite a bit, and now we have another option to consider, and we've worked with them to put a proposal together both ways. You have it in your chart. Staff is recommending option A, where Duke Energy Progress would own the lights, and because of that, we have an opportunity to return about $1 million to the general fund because less capital cost is needed to make that conversion. Staff's also recommending that we change our policy so new lights installed by development would be LED going forward. So with this, we would end up over a little over a year time, we would end up converting all our lights with the exception along major thoroughfares where there's the tallest 50,000 lumen lights that don't have a fixture available yet. But all the remaining lights would be converted to LED with this project, saving time, cost over time to the town.
Okay. All right, Mr. Smith or Ms. Bush, do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
No, I think it's a great program. I think it's very exciting that you found a cheaper way to do what we wanted to accomplish immediately, so it's a great idea.
And we all have ideas how to spend the $1 million. All right, that sounds good. We'll move it to the full council for approval of option A. Okay, the next item is the architectural concepts for Fire Station number 2. Chief Kane.
Yes, good evening, Council. Staff is finalizing the design concepts for Fire Station 2, which will be located on East Chatham Street. And given the proximity to the downtown area and the fact that this facility will further establish the architectural standards along the corridor, we're asking for council preference for each of the design concepts. And so staff is presenting two concepts. Concept one might be labeled as a more traditional approach. And so we find elements of existing structures in the downtown area in concept one, specifically elements from the Fidelity Bank, Town Hall, and the Westbrook building. And so you should have a rendering of that within your staff report. And then concept two is we would label that a more contemporary urban design, still very nice design. And so we're presenting these as options for council, and we're just looking for your direction on which way to go.
Okay, Ms. Bush?
Well, first off, I think they're both fantastic. So whoever did the concept drawings, I have to say, I really like the concept two, the more urban feel. There's something about the circular element that's been added to the doors and then continued on that gives it a new feel. So I happen to like that one better than than concept one.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Well, I actually kind of like this first one more. I thought it had a more traditional look. It looked like a fire station. I don't want to drive around town guessing where my fire stations are, you know, so
Yes.
Look, I want it to be functional. I defer to, I just have to make the point that when I looked at the two, I didn't give any consideration to the second one because I thought the first one said, now that looks like a fire station.
What did you look at?
The Cary
for number
Fire
two?
Department getting?
Yes, I did.
Open it up. Okay, I like number two.
Okay, there you go.
But I really think all of council might want to weigh in on this. I'm sure there's a few other
They can
people
pull it from the consent agenda if they feel so passionate about number one. Number two looks good. The only question I have is number two, the gray brick. Is that like a larger size brick, or is it the same size brick as the red brick?
In the rendering, it is a larger size brick, and so
Okay.
materials and shapes and colors may change as we move through the final approval process with
Okay.
DRC. So these are just conceptual renderings.
Okay.
But that is, as we see it, it is a larger brick
Okay.
or block.
Or maybe some combination, Mr. Smith, of the two, just smash them together and.
No, we don't want
See,
to, we don't pay more for architectural costs. Let's pick one. I like number two.
I do too.
I'm not as wild about the dark gray. I'm not wild about the light gray either. I mean, I'm not really wild about the gray. But I think it goes nicely with the red, so I like number two.
Duly
Okay.
noted.
All right, you pulled up, and look, nobody's going to be confused with those big doors.
I thought it was the Cary Fire Department that really showed it with
Yeah,
in big red letters.
the 18-inch letters, yeah.
And the big red
Can
too.
you get on board with two?
I think you should just let the council vote on.
Okay, we will send it for discussion for the full council. That's fine. Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Thank you, Chief.
For the record, you have two that like two, one that's being difficult. Okay, all right, number three, the general obligation bond sales schedule, Ms. Mills.
Good evening, Council. As you recall, $80 million community investment general obligation bond referendum was approved by voters on November the 6th, 2012 for capital projects. And consistent with the information that we provided to voters in advance of that referendum, Council authorized a 2-cent tax increase effective July 1, 2013 to pay for the debt service on the first of two planned $40 million debt sales. Our preliminary debt management plans projected selling the first $40 million of bonds in fall of 2013 with a $4.2 million debt service payment in FY14. Most projects could not begin design until the referendum took place because the projects would not proceed if the referendum did not pass. As a result, most of the projects identified to be funded from that first issuance of bonds are still in early stages of design, and significant construction spending on the projects is expected to begin in 6 to 12 months. Staff examined an option to delay the bond sale until spring of 2014 and recommends that council consider using that 2 cents worth of tax referendum revenues to replace debt revenues. And so we would take the $4.2 million that the new 2 cents provided to the town and use it as pay-as-you-go funding towards those same projects. Even assuming that interest rates increase in the next 6 months, we still think we could save over $60,000 in interest over the life of the bonds, assuming a higher interest rate. And by reducing the amount of the first bond sale, it provides flexibility for the future to either have a larger bond sale on the second one or to reduce the amount of the overall borrowing in total. So as a result, staff would recommend that you adopt a budget amendment that would appropriate $4.2 million worth of tax revenues that were intended for debt service to the capital projects to be used on the projects that are spending the most quickly on design and construction in lieu of debt funding.
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. So let's just look at the full scope of the implications here before, because it sounds great to save that money. That sounds awesome. You know, I was just talking with our park staff today about parks that people in west of 55 have been hopeful for. Also talking about parkland acquisition desires down in Jack's area. If we use this money, this cash money for those projects that are on the bond, we would not have that money then to try to do any of these other endeavors, but buying of open space, because the projects for which the bonds were approved are limited to those projects that we listed. We couldn't then go tack on and say, well, let's go add another park, 5 years down the road. Let's go ahead and do Cameron Pond Neighborhood Park for $3 million with that debt. Could we?
Actually, the debt referendum question was quite broad. So
Okay.
for the parks money that was not borrowed for this, you could use it for other projects later on. So it does provide increased flexibility
Okay.
for additional projects if council chooses in the future. So what we're doing is taking debt money, using cash in lieu, and so that $80 million
So you have that capacity
is still
later
there.
on
That
if
capacity
we-
is still there, and it is broad.
Okay.
For example, the transportation one is broad, the parks is broad. You
Okay.
can't cross purposes, but within the bond sale purposes, you do have more authority if you choose to use it
Okay.
in the future.
So we have a responsibility to our citizens to do what we told them we were going to do, but it doesn't limit us from doing additional things with that money.
That's correct, if council
Okay.
chooses to do that in the future. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right.
Are there any downsides to this? I see all the upsides. Are there any downsides, worst-case scenarios that?
Well,
that we're
the interest
not
rate
considering?
markets have been moving, so we have some interest rate risk, but we have taken that into consideration in this recommendation already. So using pay-as-you-go money is always the most conservative approach, and this provides you the most flexibility in the future. So
Okay.
if we borrowed the money now, it would sit in the bank and not earn anything near what the interest rate we would pay on it. So that's one of the reasons that we looked at this delayed sale and a different use of those funds, still in keeping with the intent that we, commitments that we made to our voters to move forward on those projects, but just with a cash source instead of a debt source for this first year.
Okay. Well, Karen, you've always been so strategic, and you and your department have done so much for our town. I bet most citizens don't know that you've literally saved us millions by looking out and forecasting and making decisions and recommendations like this. So we really appreciate you and your department.
Thank you.
And just how incredibly savvy you guys are. So
We appreciate your support.
you should be greatly appreciated by all the citizens. We really appreciate you. Jack, do you have anything you want to say?
No, you've said it all.
Okay, all right. Well, we will recommend under consent that the council approve this move, and we appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you for your support.
Okay, so our next item was moved off of consent, and that is the bid award for next-gen computerized maintenance management system software. Mr. Stice.
Good afternoon, Council. For the last actually a couple of years, staff has been researching computerized maintenance management systems. We started out researching a work orders facilities management system, but as we began to do the research, we found that being able to integrate the back-end horizontal assets such as water lines, sewer lines, and a lot of the other assets we have would be a valuable thing to be able to do to track the entire system. So, and part of the research we did, we tried to find the best of breed of software out there that would be the best that we could do for those back-end systems. And we also took into consideration that we wanted to be able to have staff use it in mobile devices in the field to be able to do updates to water line, sewer line information. But we also, in the Technology Task Force review, wanted to be able to provide a mobile app. So one of their requests was to be able to provide a mobile 311 app. And this system has a very well integrated app into all of those processes for that. And as we begin to research the process, we found that Durham had recently gone through a very rigorous process. They had hired a consultant, Brown and Caldwell, to come in, review their system. They're actually getting rid of their old system, replacing it with NextGen. The North Carolina general statutes allow us to piggyback on a bid if it was bid according to general statutes and if the bid is less than 6 months old and the price is equal to or better. And we're getting a slightly better price from the vendor today than Durham's bid was. So our recommendation is to piggyback the bid onto Durham's bid and be able to get the software for a total of $200,000 for the license fees and $40,000 per year for the maintenance. The services will depend on what we have NextGen do, and that will be negotiated in the contract. But we have a total in the capital project budgeted of $800,000, $500,000 for this year, and it'll really be implemented over 2 years. The first year will be the facilities piece, in which we will actually implement the mobile app, both internal and external. The external mobile app has the ability to be configured and actually customized completely. We can make it look, feel, and be what Cary wants it to be. It will be put on the mobile app stores with our branding on it. Will be listed as the Town of Cary mobile app, and you will get it from the iOS store, from Apple iTunes store, or from the Android platform either. So we'll be able to make it service our citizens completely as we want it to in that way. And probably another advantage is the ability for that to interface with all the back-end information, such that if we have information that's put in by our staff, if we have information that's put in the field and all the other things, as well as through the mobile app, could be through our website, could be through a letter, a phone call, all that information will be comprehensively viewed in the system through the mobile app by the citizen, so they can keep the status and look at the status of their events. I think the other piece that Council has mentioned over at least the last 2 retreats that I've been to has been a CRM system, Customer Relationship Management System. This has one of the most robust systems that I have seen and looked at because it covers all aspects of our service level for just about everything we do in that CRM system. So as the ability to be able to look and see a comprehensive history of every contact a citizen has had with the town for any reason to do anything. And we think it's very well worth the expenditure for that.
So are you familiar with other municipalities that actually have this up and running today?
We know of some out west. Durham is the only one in the area, I believe, on the East Coast currently that I'm aware of, but there are some out west that have actually had it running. They were recently rated by the East Software Review Organization, and they reviewed, I believe, 7 different packages, the top packages, and NextGen was rated the top. They got 5 stars. The closest to them was 3.5 stars out of 5.
And from an open data perspective, you had mentioned when we had a quick call that there were some conduits potentially for us to maybe accelerate some of our open data initiatives through
That's correct. The good thing about the integration on the back end is that if we move forward with open data, it gives us a single integrated database to be able to make all this data visible to the public. And it will be much easier than taking 4 or 5 disparate systems and trying to tie them together or export the data to make that available, because this would be able to be done through a single API.
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting things that I'm hearing from you that I haven't seen in other systems is that if you're a citizen and you go on our mobile app or, Ask Cary or whatever it is, mobile app, you can not only see what maybe Jennifer's put in or what Jack's put in, but I also get to see what some of the town staff have found on their own. So that combination of real-time data, I know that staff has already looked at it, or maybe they brought it up, so that visibility and what's really going on in government is something that we just don't have, and that sounds very exciting. And you said it's both Apple and Android?
Yes, it supports both platforms. And
great.
the apps are available in the store, so they will actually be an app that you would get from the Apple iTunes Store, just like you'd purchase any app. But the nice thing about the mobile app is it can be branded to look exactly like Cary and Cary. It will have Cary's name on it. It will be unique to us in that sense, and can be customized 100%. So.
Right. Well, I appreciate you coming and for you allowing me to take this off consent. Since many of us watch the news, this has been discussed on, or watch the newspapers or online. This was discussed in the recent Cary news, so I wanted folks who are watching and maybe watch this later on YouTube can see that there's been a nice deep dive into the technical capabilities, and people have really taken a good hard look about what the right thing is for Cary to do with the Cary way. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we will move that to the September 12th meeting under consent agenda. Okay, that concludes this meeting of the Operations Committee. Thank you for joining us.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.